Shalom to everybody from Jerusalem. Today we have a briefing by Major General Reserve Yaakov Amidror. He is Anne Greg Rosander Senior Fellow at the Jerusalem Institute for Strategy and Security. General Amidror was National Security Advisor to Prime Minister Netanyahu and Chairman of the National Security Council. He served for 36 years in senior IDF posts, including commander of the military colleges, National Defense College, Staff and Command College, and Tactical Command Academy, military secretary to the Minister of Defense, director of the Intelligence Analysis Division in Military Intelligence, and chief intelligence officer of the Northern Command. He is a distinguished fellow at the Jinsa Gemunder Center. He is the author of 3 books on intelligence and military strategy. And today he will speak on Is the War Over? Just before I give the floor to General Amidror, I want also to introduce General Yossi Cooperwasser. Say hello to everybody.
Hi, everybody. Good afternoon to you in Australia.
All of you are aware, but he is going to be the new director of the Jerusalem Institute for Strategy and Security, starting in less than 2 weeks. And he's joining us, and you are welcome.
Congratulations, great.
Thank you.
General Amidror, it's you. It's your floor.
Okay, I want to begin to congratulate Yossi. I'm very proud. You know, I had some, how to say, I'm proud that one of my, the people which had been under my command are becoming my commanders. It means that I'm growing older and they are becoming mature. I'm sure that Yossi is a fantastic choice, and it will lead the institute ahead. I'm sure about it. Now about the situation here in Israel. The most important event in this time is the visit of the Prime Minister in Washington. He just landed. He will meet the president tomorrow, I believe, and they will have a lot to discuss because the war was not ended. And we have to coordinate with the Americans the next stages. It's a good time to make such a pause, to meet the new administration and to understand where they stand and what they have in mind about all the fronts around Israel. Because the war in all these fronts is there. We didn't finish the job, and we have to decide what is the next stage. And I'll go from one front to another. With your permission, I'll begin with Lebanon. In Lebanon, the war was very short, very precise. It was prepared for years by the IDF, unlike the Gaza area. The war in Lebanon was well prepared. The intelligence were very accurate, and the ability to destroy the capabilities and the leadership of the other side was, as you could see, in a very high standard that we didn't achieve in Gaza. And the answer to the question, the natural question, why is the big difference between the two fronts, is that we had in mind all these years that the war will take part in Lebanon, and we put all our efforts there and much less in Gaza. Why we did this mistake? A good question for the inquiry and in the future. But that was the situation on the ground. In Lebanon, it was well prepared, and you could see the results. But it is not the end. Hezbollah is still there, but it's different Hezbollah. It's different Hezbollah because we destroy a lot of its capabilities and all the leadership, And not less important, the bridge which led from Tehran to the Mediterranean was broken. Syria is not anymore part of the axis. And the Iranians don't have a physical way to bring weapon systems into Lebanon. They can fly money in suitcases in flights from Tehran. Yes, they can. But hardware, weapon system, they cannot. And we are now monitoring all over the situation all over Lebanon. We have an agreement with the Americans, a side letter saying that there are 3 areas of action that the IDF should limit itself to. One is South Lebanon. Whenever we find Hezbollah members or efforts or forces or whatever belongs to Hezbollah, we can act. We don't have to apply to anybody. And just a few days ago, we bombed a little convoy of 2 truck and a car in Nabatia, the biggest city of South Lebanon, 100% Shiites, because we identified as something belonged to Hezbollah. We don't have to ask anyone and don't have to notify anyone. In South Lebanon. And where is exactly the line? It's agreed between us and Americans. The other issue is if we find something which might be lost if we begin the process. For example, 2 important commanders of Hezbollah that we identify somewhere in North Lebanon, and if we don't act immediately, they will go to a suburb of Beirut, and we will lose them. We can act immediately and not notify anyone. If there is something that we can notify the system, which is the head by an American general, and we are waiting that there will be an action by the Lebanese army. If they don't act, we can act. But this is only in places in which there is no real-time issue, and we have time to give them the notification and for them to act. And only if they don't act, we allow to do it. So we are doing all the intelligence efforts to see if Hezbollah is trying to rebuild something. For example, we destroy one of its facilities, and we saw some workers trying to open the doors of it. We bombed them immediately, and some of them had been killed because we don't want it to reopen this facility. So this is Lebanon, and we have to discuss with the Americans how they are putting pressure on Lebanon not to let Hezbollah to be part of the system again and to rearm itself. And here it's much easier than in the past because, as I said, the bridge, the physical bridge which existed between Tehran through Iraq, Syria into Lebanon does not exist. Syria is out. The second question is regarding Syria. The regime in Syria is controlled by people which had been very deep in the Taliban and the ISIS movements. They say that they חוזרים בתשובה, that they are different and they are not anymore extremists. And if you saw the visit of the new president of Syria in Saudi Arabia, he's dressed like Western president, not like member of Al-Qaeda and ISIS. They pretend that they are totally different in their approach to Syria, to the neighborhood, and so on and so forth. Israel did in Syria two different actions. One, we destroy 80% of the hardware of the old Syrian army, so they cannot take it and to absorb it and to build their own military capability. Now it's to build it again will take a long time and could not be hide. It's something that you have to bring in weapon systems. And the second move was we moved our forces in the Golan Heights 10, 15 kilometers to the east, and we broaden the area which is controlled today by Israel, including the peak of the Hermon. And the question is, and we are waiting to see what they will do. What they will do internally, what they will do in the relations between Iran and Turkey. Turkey wants to use the fact that they had been behind these forces all the time when they fought against Assad, and to have much more control inside Syria. How it will be accepted by the new rulers? Will they accept the Turks not helping them fighting Assad, but trying to be part of the Syrian system? These are Turks, these are Arabs. Not always they had very good relations. Yes, they have. They know who brought them all the facilities when it was needed, and for sure they feel that they owe the Turks a lot. But how far they will be ready to accept Turkey inside Syria? Question that I don't have an answer to. How far the Turks will be ready to go down to the south and will be in confrontation with the state of Israel? I'm not sure that this is their interest. It's Erdogan vision about the Ottoman Empire renewing itself. The ideology of Erdogan is like the Muslim Brotherhood ideology. It's very close to the ideology of this new regime in Syria. But in Syria, we are in a position of, we made our steps. Now we are watching what they are doing and what will be their attitude towards the state of Israel. And we have to coordinate our approach with the Americans, that it will be clear for the Americans that Turkey cannot be part of the scene, and that Israel will have the freedom to act whenever we feel and have the intelligence which led us to the conclusion that this is an anti-Israeli regime. I don't know. It's a good question mark. I think that at least in our system, there are more pessimistic and less pessimistic. I say that we have to have a dialogue with them under the table, but I don't know what will be the future. But here we have to coordinate how the Americans see the combination between Turkey, the new regime, and for sure it's destroyed the Shiite Iranian axis, but it might bring in another axis which is very bad, the Turkish extreme Sunni movements axis, which it's bad for Israel. Let's see. The fact that they went to Saudi Arabia is encouraging because they can provide the money. They don't want Muslim Brotherhood system to flourish in the Middle East. We don't know. We have to watch and to see and to decide based on what they are doing, not what they are saying. The other front, which is very important, is Gaza, of course. In Gaza, we didn't finish. We finished the first stage. The first stage is Hamas today is not a threat to Israel. No one asked a question how Hamas reaction will be if we succeeded to eliminate another leader of Hamas. What will be? No one asked the question how Hamas react to the assassination of Sinwar or Hania in Tehran. Because as a threat to Israel, they are not relevant. They cannot organize a new raid into Israel. They cannot have and cannot produce huge number of missiles and rockets and so on and so forth. We destroyed the military system, probably 70-80% of the military system of Hamas, but still Hamas is the strongest organization within the Gaza Strip. And no third party will come in this situation. And all the argument about why don't you prepare the day after, why you don't have an agreement with someone which will come and take responsibility instead of Hamas, it's not based on the reality on the ground. It's a political argument which does not have any connection to the reality in Gaza. If someone wants to bring a third party that will enter to the Hamas shoes and become responsible for the civilian need of the Palestinians. We have to reduce Hamas to a level in which Hamas cannot destroy and kill these third-party people that will come in. For that, we need probably another year to fight inside Gaza. How to fight? We are arguing between ourselves. Should it be raids, going in and out, or we will have to take responsibility and to control an area for a long time? For that, we need huge forces that we don't have. It's very complicated, in spite the fact that military-wise, Hamas is much weaker than it was in the 7th of October, in the 8th of October, or 2 weeks later when we begin the ground forces maneuvering into Gaza Strip. I think that a fair assessment will be that we destroyed between 70 to 80% of its military capability, and the other 20% are not well organized, and there are some areas in which they cannot change the situation. For example, they cannot build the manufacturing system that they had inside Gaza, because whenever we will find that they are doing it, we will use force immediately. We will not hesitate in this case. But what next in Gaza is a very important question for us. What about the hostages which remain in their hands? What will happen in Gaza after they release the hostages, if we have another agreement about releasing all the other hostages? The Americans are speaking about a situation in which Hamas is not controlling Gaza, how they want to do it. The president spoke about taking out of Gaza 1 million Palestinians, and that they will be absorbed they will be immigrated into Jordan and Egypt and Malaysia or Indonesia, I don't know, Albania. Is it serious? I don't think that it's serious. I don't see the Egyptians and the Jordanians ready to take these Palestinians, but how far America is ready to put pressure on those two countries which need American help, but the Americans are ready to put them in a situation in which they will have to decide between America and their interest. It's their interest that no Palestinians will come and no Palestinian will come in. It's very clear. So it is very complicated. We will have to know where the Americans stand. We have clear interest to continue the war in Gaza, to the situation, to reach the situation in which Hamas is not a threat to any third party that will come in and take responsibility for the civilian side. When we do it, probably our preference will be to do it after the releasing of all the hostages. Can it be agreed? Can we coordinate it with the Americans? Theoretically, the best situation that we can expect is that Trump is saying to the Prime Minister, Mr. Prime Minister, release all the hostages. I'm guarantee Hamas will not stay there. We will do that and that and that and that and that. And at the end, if we don't succeed, we will back you if you go back to fight inside Gaza and to destroy Hamas completely. I don't know if that will happen, if the Americans are ready for that, if the president is ready for that. But Gaza is on the table. And at the end, maybe the most important question is on the table, and this is about the continuation of the war against Iran. Iran is the main enemy. Iran is running for having nuclear military capability. The Iranians are doing all the efforts. The opposition in Iran claiming that they are doing it now. According to our intelligence, they are still not there. But no question that in this junction, it may be the last time that we have the ability to destroy Iran to the level in which they cannot continue immediately to improve their nuclear military capacity. If we don't do it now, it will be too late. And this is devastating for Israel. And we have to understand where the Americans stand. Do the Americans ready to take part? Do the Americans ready not to take part, but at least to help Israel? Because the Americans are not ready not to take part, not to help Israel, but we let Israel to do whatever Israel wants, and they will back us in the international community afterwards, or they will say, don't do it. Don't do it. And we will have to decide if we are doing it in spite of the American view. So if you ask me what is the most crucial question on the table about continuation of the war, is the question about Iran. What is the more urgent question that should be dealt is about Gaza. And I hope that the American president and the Prime Minister of Israel will find common ground, because for Israel to understand where we stand and to have the ability to finish the job in at least in two areas that I spoke about, I think it's crucial. It's really crucial. Another two remarks, and then I'll open it to question. One is about the Houthis in Yemen. The Israel decision is that it is not our job to solve the problem. Yes, we will bomb from time to time if they launch missiles into Israel, but it is far away. The distance to Yemen is more than the distance to Tehran. I mean, Sana'a is 300 kilometers at least longer trip than to Tehran. It's not in our capacity. It's the Americans will have to make decisions. Others will have to make decisions. Israel cannot and should not try to solve the Houthi issue. We don't have the capacity to robust actions in 2,000 kilometers from Israel. We don't have the Navy for that. We don't have the Air Force for that. It's too far. The other remark is about the West Bank. The West Bank is probably was the biggest strategic mistake of Sinwar. When Sinwar initiated the war in the 7th of October, he had in mind that others will join. First of all, the Palestinians in the West Bank, and then Hezbollah from Lebanon. They didn't. Hezbollah entered with half gear, and the Palestinians in the West Bank didn't. Not half gear, not even half gear. The level of demonstrations inside the West Bank was very, very, very low. No one place in which more than 2,000 people came to demonstrate for an hour, and they went back home. The level of terrorism inside the West Bank was the same as it was before the war. Here and there were some incremental different situations. And we know for sure that Iran invested huge money and smuggling and a lot of weapons was smuggled into the West Bank just to build the capacity there, but they didn't join. That was the biggest mistake of Sinwar. At the end of the day, Israel could concentrate all its forces in Gaza. We didn't have to deal with the full Lebanese Hezbollah war, and we didn't have to deal with huge operation in the West Bank. The decision after the ceasefire in Lebanon and the deal to release the hostages, which allow the IDF to take out of Gaza many forces, brought us to the decision that now is the time to smash the cells of terror which had been built by Iran during the last few years. It is not as strong as Gaza, far from that. It is not as sophisticated as Gaza, far from that. But it is still very close to Israel, along the longest border with Palestinians that we have. And it's an area in which we have many settlers, so the interaction between Jews and Arabs is very close. And this is why we are now in a big operation around Jenin and Tulkarem. In the It is the area in which they succeeded to build more capabilities than in the south. We probably will have to make some, not as big, but some operations in near around Jerusalem, but still the north of the area, what we call Shomron, is the area in which Hamas and Islamic Jihad succeeded to build some strong areas in which they have weapon systems, they have their members which are ready to fight. It's not the numbers of Gaza, but it is still a threat that we decided not to let it to be too strong, and now is the time to deal with it. And what you see now is two big operations in the West Bank. We decided that to use their even the Air Force, if will be needed. It's not many times, but it's very helpful. And I hope that we succeed to destroy this area. This is strong points which had been built by the Hamas and Islamic Jihad, financed directly by the Iranians, which were very active, smuggling in the weapon from Jordan, and in some cases even through Lebanon. It's a very interesting route. So this is the situation around Israel. Everyone is waiting to the outcome of the meeting between the Prime Minister and the President. The IDF is very active under the construction, under the frame of the ceasefire in Lebanon. But we are active there. We are bombing from time to time if there is a need. In Gaza, we are more cautious because we don't want to destroy the agreement and to get all the hostages back, those which had been agreed upon. We are in the middle of the process. It's not nice to see the ceremonies in the Palestinian side, but at the same time, we learn from many sources that those who came back to the area which their homes in the north are very frustrated because they don't have where to live and how to live. So this is the situation on the ground, and let's see what the Prime Minister will come with in the beginning of next week. He probably will leave there the end of the weekend, and will come back to Israel next Sunday afternoon. Let's see what he will bring back from the President, and I'm open to question. By the way, the President immediately opened all the previous administration freeze some munition and some hardware which was bought by Israel. They didn't send it to Israel, and that was freezed immediately by the new administration. We are getting everything that we asked for and we pay. Yes. And now I'm open to questions.
Well, you can use your chat button or.
Yeah, Yaakov, can I ask you if you think there will be much change with the new Ramakal, or different personalities, or the same strategy?
Look, it's first time since the Yom Kippur War that we have a chief of staff. I have to be very careful. We are very good friends, which is coming from the armor and not from the infantry. And people can laugh and say, "Oh, what's the difference?" It's a big difference when it is coming to discipline and clear orders and clear implementations of orders. It's a huge difference between the infantry in Israel and the armor corps. He has huge experience, He was in the last few years the general manager of the Ministry of Defense. He met all the Americans. Sorry,
Probably good.
all the Americans which are relevant to the Israeli military relations. He spent more than a year in Washington writing a paper, very good paper, by the way, about Iran and what Israel should do. He is coming with strong views about how and what should be changed within the IDF. And I hope to see the difference. And it doesn't have the burden of the previous chief of staff, which I think made very important and right decisions during the war after the failure of the 7th of October. It took the IDF from the bottom of the 7th of October to the situation in which we succeeded to do both, to destroy Hamas in Gaza and to come out with the war against Hezbollah with strong position, and even our attack in Iran was a very successful one. So all in all, I think that previous Ramatkal did a very good job taking the IDF out of the bad, low situation in which the IDF was in the 7th of October. But I think that Eyal Zamir now will have to rebuild the IDF and to make it stronger and more disciplined.
Yaakov,
We don't hear you. We don't hear you.
can I ask you about Russia?
Yeah.
Are they a player now in the Middle East?
No question that Russia is one of the two big or three big losers of the change of the regime in Syria. They had huge investment there in the Air Force base and the Navy base. They made many efforts to keep Assad in his position. And now it's clear that their relations with the new regime will not be the same. The new regime is demanding that they will send Assad back to Syria, and they will pay them compensation for what they did in Syria. I mean, it's bad relations. By the way, if it is within ourselves and that will not be released outside, in one of the meetings with Putin in the 11 of 12, I don't remember, I asked him about why he is increasing the presence of the Russians in Syria. He said immediately, it didn't take him a second to answer, because we understand that the alternative are the jihadists, and it's bad for Russia to have jihadists so close to the Russian border, I mean in Syria. And now it's his nightmare. The jihadists are there, and they lost their bases in Syria, probably will not get it back unless they will find any arrangement with the new regime. And they lost the ability to have presence in the east side of the Mediterranean, which is an old dream of the Russians, if you look to the history. They tried to find kind of a substitute in Libya. I'm not sure that it is a real substitute. It's far away. It might help them in Africa, but not in the Levant, not close home, not close to Turkey, which is always in the corner of their, that is a problem. So they lost a lot by the change of the regime in Syria. Will they recover? Probably not to the same level that they had in the Middle East. And today, the Russians don't have any step within the heart of the Middle East. Since, I don't know, since the 70s or the 60s, it never had been. What they will build in Libya, we have to see and to understand how strong it is. But yes, they are one of the big losers in the Middle East because of the change in Syria. The other two are the Iranians and Hezbollah, but the Russians are in a bad position relating what they had before the big change in Syria and what they have after. How it will be connected to the war in Ukraine, I don't know. Probably there is no any connection or direct connection at least. And they will continue their good relations with Iran because they need Iran to help them with some capabilities. So it will not change the relations within the axis of Iran, Syria, China, and so on and so forth.
Thank you.
I have a question. I just want to ask you, General, what was the reason, do you think, after the 7th of October that the Lebanese and the West Bank didn't enter the fight?
Oh, this is a huge question. I'll begin with Lebanon. I think that what happened is, first, Hezbollah and Nasrallah understood that he lost a very important element of its military plan. He will not surprise us. They lost the ability to surprise Israel because the minute that it was done in the 7th of October, early in the morning, in Gaza, it was well understood that the readiness in the north will be totally different. After a few hours, it could be seen because we moved many forces into the north. Almost all the reserve forces immediately had been allocated to the north. So within a few hours, the middle of the day, probably they could see the forces are coming. So the loss of the surprise, I think, was a very important element. The second one is Hezbollah was built by the Iranians to deter Israel from attacking Iran, not to help the Palestinians. For the Iranians, it was part of the ring of fire around Israel, which should one day coordinated by the Iranians to push Israel and to crumble Israel in. Here they understood that it is not going to happen because it happened not without coordination, and Israel succeeded to react to the wave in the south before Hezbollah could enter to the war, because they need few hours to organize themselves and to come in. They had been surprised like Israel. So coordination or full coordination will not take part in Israel in a better position. And maybe there was a psychological issue here that the war was initiated by Sinwar, not by Hezbollah. And how me, Nasrallah, the center of the whole axis, I look like number two, like someone who is reacting to the initiative of Sinwar. No, let Sinwar to suffer a little bit. I'm not going to sacrifice all my capabilities and my people. We will help. No one can say that we didn't take part in the war, and immediately they began to act. Very minor, by the way. What they did is to bring teams of Palestinians and try to help them to infiltrate into Israel. All of them eliminated near the border, either in this side of the fence or the second or the north part of the fence. And then they begin to bomb Israel not more than 10 kilometers south of the border. So I think that all the three elements were there. Losing the surprise, it was not coordinated, so they understood it to be much weaker than they had in mind. And maybe the psychological effect of it's not mine. I'm now becoming just reacting to what the Palestinians did, and I don't want to be in this position. I want to lead. So I don't know element was more important. It was the decision was taken consultation with the Iranians, and I think that for Israel it was the. By the way, in our side, 4 days after the beginning of the war, in the 11th of October, the GHQ brought to the cabinet a plan to attack in Lebanon. They had an opportunity to decapitate the leadership of Hezbollah, and they said, let's do it. And they were ready to take the risk of fighting in 2 fronts. And the prime minister decided that he should concentrate on 1 front, and the real war against Hezbollah began only when we understood that the Beeper operation is in a situation of use it or lose it. And we decided to use it, and that was the opening of the door for the real war against Hezbollah. But till that moment, Nasrallah didn't make the decision to go to full war against Israel. And as I told you, I think that these are the 3 reasons. In the West Bank, I think it's more complicated. I think it's a combination of the level of readiness. They didn't reach the level of readiness that Sinwar reached in Gaza. They didn't feel they are strong enough. The control, the intelligence and the operational control of the IDF in the West Bank is much more tight than in Gaza. And they felt that if they ignite the area, the immediate reaction of the IDF will be a severe one, and we're not ready to take the risk. And I think they didn't have the support within the Palestinians, which Sinwar had in Gaza, because of the economic situation in the West Bank, because the atrocities of the 7th of October was, I think, for even some of the Arabs, it was too much. Because they understood that the IDF is ready, they couldn't coordinate it to the same minute, so immediately the IDF was in a high readiness. So they have, without the people behind them, they didn't act. It's a good question, because if we understand it well, that should teach us what should we do in the future in the West Bank, how we make them understand that it is not their interest to ignite the area. So I think it's very important question, more important for the future, more important than the question why it didn't happen in Hezbollah, because it's different in Hezbollah now. In the West Bank, it's basically the same situation. And what made the difference and why he didn't succeed. And it was the huge failure that he had. If we had a big, how to call it, blow explosion in the West Bank, the whole Israeli system was in a different situation, including the IDF, which had to allocate huge forces to the West Bank. So I think that was the strategically the main mistake that he did, and he paid for that. Huge. And we have to learn it and to well understand why it was so, because this is something that we have to encourage in the future. So I think it's one of the, what happened in the 7th of October, it will not teach us how to not have another 7th of October. Here we have to learn very deeply what made the difference, because here we have the same situation in the future.
Yeah, thanks. When do you think some of the Israeli citizens will go back to the north?
It very much depends on the IDF actions in South Lebanon. If it will be clear that the IDF is determined and no Hezbollah forces can go down, I mean, civilians which are members of Hezbollah and are going back to their villages something that we cannot prevent. There is no any way to identify that. But any commander or any unit or any organized something of Hezbollah going down, we will have to react immediately, not to wait even an hour. And if that will be clear, that the IDF is determined to prevent any move of Hezbollah as an organization, again, private people which have that are part of the organization probably can infiltrate within the civilians which are going back to their home. But no unit, no military capability, no hardware, nothing. Everything will be bombed immediately, destroyed immediately by the IDF. If that will be clear to the people in North Israel, they will go back home. By the way, there is a huge frustration now in Sderot and around the Gaza Strip that because of the deal releasing the hostages, the Palestinians are coming back to Gaza City and the north part of the Gaza Strip, and it is very close to some areas. Yes, they don't have where to live. Yes, many areas totally destroyed, but still the Palestinians are coming back, and people in north in what we call Otef Gaza, the envelope of Gaza, don't like, and some of them are saying that they will leave the area.
Last question, how are the soldiers holding up with this long war?
Oh, yesterday I spoke with the commander of reserve battalion who asked me to come to speak in front of the commanders of the battalion. I'll do it probably next week. They served 5 months since the beginning of the war, and now they are getting the order to be ready to serve another 70 days. For the reserve forces, it's a devastating situation. People are leaving their businesses, their universities, families, and going for 70 days. Think about it. It's more than 2 months to serve, and it is all over the reserve forces. We will have to broaden the number of the reserve units because it cannot be continued for a long time. If we begin the war with the in average reserve unit, there were more than 110% of the ordinance. I mean, people came in spite of the fact that they had been called, and some of them are out of the unit for years. Today, it is around 80-85%, depends on the unit. There are units that it is more, some units which are going together from the compulsory service time up till now, and we had some brigades that it is going like that people are going together from the age of 18 to the age of 40, and people are not leaving such units. They have kind of an obligation to their own friends that they are coming, whatever will be the price. So, but it is around 80-85%. It is not as high as the beginning of the war, but it is still very high. It very much depends what will be what they will see in the future. If it will be understood that it is the last round, and after that we don't have to do the same efforts in Gaza and in Lebanon, they'll be more ready to come. The Israelis are very practical. If they are coming and say, guys, you have to pay the price, but it is the effort which is needed, and afterwards it will be easier, they will come. If it will be kind of attrition war which is not ended, it will be reduced. With the regular army is another story. The new generation of the regular army is, I must say, I admire them. In my age, we didn't fight for such a long time without any breaks. And they are moving from one front to another. I met yesterday a battalion commander who is now in the West Bank. He told me, I'm moving to Gaza with the whole battalion. I think that there the crisis is much less deep. The problem is the commanders, which have families. He told me, I saw my family in the last year and the last 16 months very rarely. So for the young soldiers, they don't have the family, they don't have children, they don't have to raise a family. They are fighting. For the commanders with families and so on, the level of company commanders and battalion commanders and up, this is very, very complicated situation. It very much depends on the atmosphere at home. The more the women are supportive, the easier it is for the commanders. And the IDF is investing a lot on the organizing the women, helping them, and so on and so forth. But we are not good enough in that because we don't have an experience. Israel never fought such a long war since the War of Independence, and now it's longer than the War of Independence. So we have to make more. But I think that if I learned that if the mission is clear, it's easier for the people on the ground. If the mission is blurred and people don't understand what they do there, people are not ready to sacrifice. I'll give you an example. When the decision was taken to move the 10 kilometers to the east in the north, there was a struggle between commanders. Everyone volunteered to do it, in spite of the fact that it was known that the conditions on the ground will be very bad. It's the winter, it's very cold, and nothing was prepared there because we didn't have a plan to make the move. And now we are building all the facilities which are needed, but it's very hard physically to be now in the north, in the peak of the Hermon and up in the Golan Heights. I remember when I was young, it was the beginning of being organized ourselves. It was very cold, and the situation is not easy. We don't, we are not the ice experts in Israel. We don't have too many areas in which it is so cold. But there was a fight between commanders to why it was clear mission with clear need, and everyone wants to be there to make the operation. I think that still we don't have a real crisis. We have a big problem within the reserve forces, and the longer it will take, the more the crisis will be felt by inside the army. But for the moment, we don't have it because people still understand that the need to do what we are doing.
And if there's not another question, another short question,
it's very clear that it is about leadership. The units in which there is a strong leadership, which make people understand why they are coming and what they are fighting for, and so on and so forth, the situation is easier. And you could see the difference between the segments inside the Israeli society. Those which have more, to say, ideological commitment to the state, and those who do not.
Anyway, on the chief of staff, I want to tell you that a year ago, 18 months ago, somebody from Israel asked me if I would entertain the chief of staff for the day. So I had him in the morning in the office, and the evening I had him at an excellent Chinese restaurant. And other than he thought there were 40 million people in Australia, which I helped correct him, it was a delightful dinner with a highly intelligent guy, and it was really a privilege to meet him. So when the news came out a few days ago, it was really good, and I was interested in your comments about the switch and the change of the chief of staff. It was good news.
You met Eyal, you mean?
Yeah, came to my office. I spent the day with him.
We have WhatsApp, we are exchange all the time. So I'll send him your best regards and
Tell him the guy who took him to the Chinese restaurant
in Australia.
He will know straight away. You know, we spent the evening together. It was very nice with one other guy, which I brought along called Ron. Yes, academic. Anyway, it was an interesting. One more question I got, and then one more quick question: the economy. The economy, all the social issues we're talking about in regard to the army, etc., the social issues, you know, and tell me about the impact on the economy and what's happening to the economy.
Okay, I'll begin with the committee which I had the honor to be member of, which was nominated by the Minister of Finance, Minister of Defense, and the Prime Minister to allocate budget to the for the next 10 years to the Ministry of Defense. The basic budget of the Ministry of Defense was around 65 billion shekel a year, almost 70. The Prime Minister added at the beginning of the war around 10 billion to yearly to the budget. I'm not speaking about the expenses of the war itself, which is probably around in both fronts more than $25 billion shekel. And so it was around $80 billion. On the table for the committee were 170 billion shekel. And the Prime Minister said it is not more than that. The Finance Ministry said that the Ministry of Defense doesn't need even one penny. And the Minister of Defense asked for 220 billion, 50 more than the Prime Minister put as the highest bar. After 5 months of hard work, we allocated 130 billion shekel in 10 years, averagely 13 billion shekel a year. It will make the Israeli defense budget close to 100 billion in the next 10 years. It is going down at the end, but this is the average. It's a huge burden. Huge burden. It's much less than the IDF wanted. It's much more than the finance ministry was ready to allocate. And that would put Israel in a delicate situation, because what we wanted not to break is the ratio between the GNP and the debts of Israel. We began the war with 60% of the GNP, and we will end probably with 70, 71. It's a huge difference. You understand that for any credit, we are paying now much more money, because it's very costly to lend now. We don't, by the way, we don't have problem to sell bonds of Israel all around the world. The world, the economic world is very strong supporter, and I understand that Israel will pay. We have a very good reputation of paying debts in the past, and that is still there. But the burden is very high out of the GNP for defense, and the ratio between debts and GNP is not as good as it was in the 6th of October. There was surprise during the first months of the year. The taxes of from the economic operation, the taxes payment was higher than was expected. It means that the economy is viable, is running faster than people expected. What we need now, and this is the big test of the Israeli economy, is to revive the investment in the Israeli market. I'm not speaking about charity, which is huge. Jews are contributing to Israel from all around the world, huge money. I'm not speaking about charity. I'm not speaking about simple actions like buying an apartment in Jerusalem, which remain empty afterwards. I'm speaking investment in the real economy, in buildings to build in Israel, in startups in Israel, in companies in Israel, and so on and so forth. I know that in the military industry, money is coming. People are ready to invest in startups which are relating to military side. I'm involved in one of them, and I see people are ready to invest. They understand that Israel is going to be stronger in the future, and for that we have to have more capacity in our industry and more startups that will succeed and will be bought by the IDF and will be exported to outside. The old high tech is still in a problem. We have to make more efforts, although we see signs that it is continuing, not in the same level, but it is continuing. And the problem is the deep tech, which Israel does not have a big companies, and it is needed here. We have to broaden our industry base. It is well understood here. Part of the money that we allocated is going to encourage the Ministry of Defense to build in Israel more capabilities, which will make Israel less independent in the future, relating to spare parts, munitions, some special important elements which are needed for future manufacturing of weapon systems in Israel. We will continue to buy aeroplanes in America and submarines in Germany, but munitions, spare parts, and special elements which are needed to the more sophisticated kind of weapon system that we want to build in Israel, huge money will go to that. We will have to broaden our capabilities in this area and to be better prepared for the next generation of weapon that we want to manufacture in the future, and we have to build infrastructure for that inside Israel. This is the test. The test of Israel. I think in the second month of the war, I flew by special request to meet some rich Jews in New York. I landed at 6 o'clock in the morning and I took off before 10 o'clock at night. I was a few hours in Manhattan to meet a group of very rich Jews, and I told them that the last question was, what can we help? And I said, guys, if you want to help, invest in Israel. Reviving the economy will be the big test of Israel at the end of the war. We will manage with Hamas that way, with Hezbollah the other way, even with Iran, if we have some help from the Americans. To revive the economy, we will have to do by ourselves, and here the diaspora can make the difference.
You have to recharge their appetite for risk.
Yes, I don't.
Yeah, because people are fearful, this, that, and the other. But anyway, I understand.
And okay, we are towards the end of the briefing, and before the end, I call upon Dr. Danny Lam, who is the chair of our executive committee, to say a few words.
Thank you, Ephraim, and shalom to everybody. I'm in the major square in Ra'anana. I was just attending a lecture which was on at the same time by Ephraim Eitan Gilboa, who's one of our fellows. I just want to say this. Yossi is online, and Ephraim has welcomed Brigadier General Yossi Kupavasa, who we appointed as the new Rosh Machon, the head of the Institute, only a few days ago. And this heralds the beginning of what I hope will be enormous growth of JIS. I'm particularly looking for your support, but the support will be much wider. And hopefully so that we can more severely inform and impact on government decisions to strengthen the strategic aspects of government thought and improve security. So that's where we're going. I don't know if anybody, because I was tied up, if anybody, but we'll look for the opportunity to do it, to thank Ephraim for the fantastic work he did in establishing this institute and carrying it through. And even in the last year and a half, when there were some issues that should have distracted Ephraim because of ill health of others. So, kol hakavod, and Yaakov, toda rabah od pam. Thank you very much. And I'll be back in Australia for next Shabbat. So, kol tov to everybody. Thanks, Ephraim.
Shalom from Jerusalem.
תודה רבה, להתראות.
Ephraim, thank you for everything. We're going to make you a sir, you know. I think this is the title that you deserve because you put it.
Sir Ephraim.
Yeah, Sir Ephraim, absolutely, because he's put in consistent energy under difficult circumstances, and he's a great man, and he already looks about 10 years younger, Yaakov Amidror. He already looks 10 years younger. So
you can't believe how happy he was at the conclusion of the meeting.
Well, he looks terrific. He's had a haircut. He looks great. And so, General Yosef Kupovata, you know, you're already doing your work. Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Greg, personally, and hope to see you soon.
Absolutely. Thanks for
Bye.
everything.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.